Hey everyone, this video is going to be a little different than most of them. In most of the videos so far, we've been trying to plow ahead and make progress in the way of very tangible adding new features and functionality with the occasional bug fix. And this video is going to be very different. It's really important when you're developing a game, even with moderate complexity, and you're adding a lot of features. It's really important every once in a while to sort of stop, take a deep breath, look at what you've got so far, and start to polish and balance and look for bugs. And as always, Corey is here with me. Say hi, Corey.
Hey, how's it going?
So before recording this video, Corey and I had a conversation, and for the first time since we started this project, he loaded up his own Construct2, loaded the game in it, and played it a little bit to see how it's going. Because so far, as I said, every other video, every other productive scrum we've had has been all about getting those features in. But you definitely reach a point at some point where it's time to start balancing your gameplay and balancing and perfecting your features, because eventually you get to a point where you might not actually be able to decide what the best feature or the best type of a feature is, because none of your gameplay is balanced. And if you all watched the previous video where we were adding the thunder and lightning powers to that level, you may have seen that after adding all of the functionality to the strong lightning attack, it broke the gameplay challenge-wise, because suddenly you could just spam it and just destroy all the enemies really easily. So now is really the time, now that we've got several levels going with all of the moves and the different powers for those levels, it's really time to take a deep breath, start playing the game as though it's an actual game and not just a giant pile of features, and start to refine this stuff. There's that saying that I'm sure I've said in previous videos: the last 20% of making a game is the last 80% of the work, or is 80% of the work. And that's very true from a how hard you sort of need to put, what's the expression, your nose to the grindstone, or whatever the expression is. You have to really, there tends to be really hard crunch time, and you've got all those features in, but now it's time to find and fix all those bugs and all that. And usually that's how that expression is taken. It's taken to mean actually wrapping up loose ends and fixing bugs and stuff like that. But it's also very much true with the overall quality of your game. You can, go ahead, Corey.
Well, and I was going to say, this is one aspect of testing your game, too, that people need to keep in mind is, Mike here, he's been playing the game so much all this time that he's pretty used to the way things were. I noticed some things right off the bat when I started playing kind of fresh on it, right, that he might not have noticed otherwise. So sometimes it's good to have someone who's never touched your game play it. Even though I've sat here and watched you build it, playing it was a different experience for me. Like, I noticed things I would have never noticed had I not touched the controls. So. Yeah,
and that's a really good point. And you mentioned in your wording, you said sometimes it's a good idea. And what I think you meant, and I just want to reiterate this, it's always a good idea to sometimes, every once in a while at least, in other words, for every project, on several occasions, you need feedback from people who haven't been playing the game every day as it evolves. Because, and I've dealt with this over and over again in projects, it's funny, the programmers themselves of the games ends up insane godly levels of good at the game. So they make the worst playtesters possible, because they only behave how they expect to behave based on the gameplay, and they get into these patterns. They always play the same way, and it is incredibly hard for them to find new bugs or to do something that they don't expect. Can't even think of doing things that a fresh player would just instinctually do. And that's often where you find the real places where there's big bugs that you've just somehow never discovered. Having my girlfriend or wife, depending on what time in my life, playtest was always an amazing bug finding experience, because it was always someone that not only had not played that game before, but just in general didn't play many video games, so they would do really unexpected stuff. And it was just amazing at finding bugs. But anyway, so that's what the theme of this video is going to be. If you're going to put in all this work and creativity, it's one thing to have really cool ideas, but without spending that extra time after it's working to make sure it's working in the most rewarding way possible and the most clearly communicated way possible and the least frustrating as far as gameplay controls, that is every bit, if not more, important than having the idea and getting it to just work in the first place. Even if it's bug-free, even if it's a great idea, if the physics don't quite feel right, if the response of the player and the enemy isn't visceral and clear enough, you could have an amazing idea that just completely, there's no reward to it for the actual player at the end. And in fact, you could take a great idea and kind of ruin it or spoil it because now they've experienced this idea being done kind of poorly.
Yep.
So
Yep.
always make sure that, you're making your game, it's not just about getting it to function the way conceptually in sort of words. It's all about that visceral and visual feedback and timing and the way things look and the way keyframes look and the balance of, how much is this going to hurt enemies? How often can you do this move? All of these sorts of things. Just very simple things like how long does a player stay in the air when they jump? All of these things, taking your time to perfect all of that and make sure it's all in balance with each other is critically important. And anyway, so that's the major point. I do want to start this video, or the productive part of this video, first fixing a couple of bugs, important bugs that Corey did find. And the first one was that if you die and then restart the game, it's going to look like you're restarting with your full 4 hit points. But in actuality, you still have 0 hit points. And so as soon as you take a hit, you're going to die.
Yep.
So that was a very simple solution to fix, but it does tie into a gameplay related decision, and that is, do we want the character's hit points to always be reset at the beginning of the level? And we might need to make this more complicated once the full game is in, where we might have the character go from one section of an environment to another, and we don't want them to get that free health replenish. Actually, yeah, even in this case, that's a good point. You go from the level itself to the actual sort of boss room or boss level.
Right.
And between those 2 points, you would not want the player to get his health replenished, but then after the boss, before the next actual full level, with a new theme, you would want it to get replenished. So that is something we'll have to deal with eventually, but for now I just went the fast way and kind of patched the bug as it currently stands, which is to just make it so that at the beginning of every level, it resets that value. But all we have to do eventually, we will separate it from the beginning of every level in the universal gameplay events, which is where I put it. So I'll show you. So now here in start of layout, we have set hit points to 4. So what I'll have to do eventually is move that to the beginning of every specific level that should start you out with the full 4 hit points. And then the other really important thing is that, like I said, the hit points was not properly updating at the beginning of the level to show you how many hit points you actually had. So you looked like you had all 4, but you actually had 0. So the way to fix that was to call a function that I had previously created a long time ago called update health, which is the function that actually updates the visuals of the HUD, the life meter, the score, and all of that when something actually changes. So that, it's one specifically for score, one for lives, and one for health. So this one does health. And so now, because of that, when we do make it so that certain levels replenish your health and certain levels don't, each level will properly update as it's fading in. It'll have the actual current health of the character replenished. And what was the other bug, Corey? Can you remind me?
The other one was I started playing the level 2 layout and I died. And through the menu went back and restarted level 1. And I suddenly had powers when you shouldn't
From
at the
level,
beginning of the game.
And they were the wrong ones. Yep.
Yeah, and they were mixed. So
So there were 2 causes for that. There are 2 variables, and one of them keeps track of what type of magic you're supposed to get in that level. And the other one, that's called firepower, which is a little misleading. Maybe I'll change that to power level, just to be less confusing. So...
Or power type or something like that.
Well, no. See, that's the thing. This is the
level.
This is the one that is the level. But it said the word fire in it, which was misleading, because one of the types of power you can get is fire.
Yeah, we already fixed the type. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. So now there's 2 ones. There's power type, which by default that value is set to flame. And then we have the power level, which is, am I at power level 1, 2, 3, or 4 for whatever power I'm supposed to have per level. So what I had done in a previous video is at the beginning of specifically level 2, and it would be this case for every level, So if I go into the specific events for that level, you'll see at start of layout, I set the power type to thunder, which is appropriate for level 2. The problem was for the code for level 1, because in gameplay events it defaults to flame, I thought, oh well, I don't need to set it manually to flame because it's already going to be flame by default. But that's not the case if you play your way to level 2, and then so automatically the value is going to be set to thunder in that case. And then you die, and then start replaying again from level 1. Now you're going to have the thunder magic in level 1.
Right.
So that fixes that part of the bug. And then the other part, obviously, was that other value, which is called power level, at the beginning of every level. And again, this might need to change, because when you get all your power, then you go to the boss fight. You don't want to lose all the power you earned before the boss fight. That would be incredibly annoying.
You know, I had a thought about that too. This brings up a different sort of scenario where it's like, okay, you beat level 1, which has the fire powers. We would want you to enter level 2 and all the powers be removed, because then you have to rebuild the thunder powers, because you wouldn't want to enter level 2 and just have all the thunder powers already. That would be awkward. So it makes me think there needs to be some visual cue or something when you beat a boss that makes it obvious that, like, this particular magic is going away and you're going to have to get the new magic or whatever.
And there was the same exact issue with Altered Beast, and you remember at the end of every level after you beat the boss, his holographic head would appear and he'd steal all your power balls out of you. You'd be reverted back to the original guy, and then you would jump down that hole, that portal that his holographic head had created. And then you'd always be starting a full-on new level with no power level, so you have to always recollect those power orbs or power-ups and, to get the new power for that particular level. So definitely it'll be good for us to do something.
Obviously we're not going to do that now, but, it's just a thought I had about the design.
Add an animation of the gauntlet disappearing and reverting back to the sort of bracelet that the guy has when he doesn't have a specific gauntlet power.
Right, yeah.
So, we'll create a reason for it. And it could be as simple as the wizard who ends up... I was just about to spoil this plot twist, but I just realized only the Patreon patrons are privy to this information.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, the point is, we can make it so that there's a helper wizard that gave you the gauntlet in the first place and told you how to use it, and he could be collecting that power at the end of every level, like the extra power.
Oh, yeah.
So
that makes sense.
That's as much as I'll say about that.
Right.
But anyway, so that's what's going on there. So those are the bugs. That's how Corey found them, by actually playing the game. And that's when you play to playtest, you get to that part as fast as possible. So you're just restarting right in specific levels. You're setting valuables manually so that you start with the power to begin with. You're doing all these cheats to look for specific types of bugs, but you're going to completely miss the types of bugs that only occur when you play the game properly, from opening screen to cinematic to level 1 to level 2 and then dying and starting over and all that. Really critical to start playing and having other people play the game. Once you have enough of the functionality there, that it's really time to slow down, start to get yourself better organized, look for and fix bugs before you're piling unstable and improperly designed things on top of other unstable and not properly designed things. And that's the other point. Like I said, if you get too far ahead and you're just, it works, there's a lot of tweaking and changes to the actual functionality of specific gameplay elements that you might actually create entire sections of functionality or powers that are completely not right for the game, but you had no idea because you don't know exactly how the game is shaping up, because you're just sort of forming this big lumping thing out of clay by adding more and more clay, and because it's not refined.
As an example of that, you might say, okay, my character jumps this way, so I'm going to add a power based on their jump. And then you realize at the beginning, I need to tweak the way that jump works or how high it is. Suddenly that could break that power you implemented later. So you do have to not wait basically till the very end to start testing. You sort of have to do it a little bit along the way as you go. So yeah.
And the good thing is, you will develop experience with this, and it will start to become obvious once you're having questions about, should I add this feature or not, or how should this feature work? ask yourself, am I having trouble deciding because so much of what's already there is a little bit amorphous, not properly balanced? So
Right.
that it's the obscurity. It's like a fog, you know what I mean? Or like I said, sculpting with clay. You could end up putting way too much clay in all the wrong places
Right.
if your general shape is so generic and so unrefined that you can't tell exactly where you're adding and what exactly it represents. So that's when it's really time to say, okay, I have to stop adding for now and start refining. Anyway, I think we've made that point perfectly clear, so we'll move on to actual productivity work. And some of it can be very simple. And keep in mind, everyone, also, this type of thing should always be iterative, meaning this has to happen in steps, and you should never consider anything ironclad, even if you've refined it and balanced it once or twice or 3 times before. As you add new things and keep testing and having good new ideas to implement, you might need to keep going back and say, well, now due to this, and this power and this tweak to the AI of the enemies or whatever, now this should happen, or the physics should be a little different this way or that way. And it's important to maintain that flexibility and to just keep in mind the whole time, you're not wasting time. It does not matter how many times you need to readdress something. It's not about, oh, but that feature was done and now I'm upset because I'm redoing or retweaking how it works. It's all part of the process of getting to the best possible version of your game, a truly finished version of your game, which will help separate your game from the vast majority of other sort of independently developed games by especially first-time game developers. So having that frame of mind and caring every bit as much about iteration and as just having cool ideas and getting them to work in the first place is critical for the success of your games. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about, one of the critical things to tweak when you start really refining the actual gameplay and controls, is the movement speed of your character. And Corey had a really interesting experience when he knew the theme of this video was going to be actually tweaking and polishing and improving things. He had mentioned it before, how the character looked like they were moving a bit too fast. And he had that opinion before ever having played the game because of the way the game looked, because of a lot of visual cues that were all happening at the same time that created that feeling that the character was moving too fast. But once he played the game, he was like, well, actually, he's probably not really moving that fast, but there's these 2 major visual cues that made it look like he was moving too fast. One is the actual animation playback speed of the walk is slower than it should be based on his walk speed, so he's kind of sliding around, kind of forward moonwalking. His feet aren't even remotely synchronized with skating. Where he would be right, exactly. He's skating. He's not really planting his feet on the ground. That's never perfect in a 2D game because you have perfect, smooth, continuous motion, and it would be impossible to absolutely perfectly have the pixel perfect foot alignment with the ground. However, it can get way closer than it is, and right now his animation is too slow compared to his movement speed, which exaggerates how fast he seems to be moving, because he looks like he's being pushed along by an invisible gust of wind behind his back. And then the other thing that's every bit as important, probably even more important, was that extreme foreground layer you could see here with this tree. It creates that effect because it scrolls so much faster than the regular foreground, than the actual area that the character is supposed to be planted on. It scrolls so much faster, it creates almost that, you know, when you're riding in a car and you're looking out the side window and there's trees or phone poles whizzing by at lightning speeds. That gives you an extreme sense of speed, and there's a similar effect here. So
I think too, it was mostly an effect in level 1 because of that extra plane at the bottom that's going by so quick. The actual trees moving, it wasn't really that jarring. It was mostly that ground plane
because the ground was there too.
In the other levels, it doesn't seem to have that effect. So
So let's go into the. So the scrolling speed of the front layer is the easiest thing because I literally just have to go into layers and the FFG layer here and just edit its parallax. So you can see it's almost twice as fast in the X and Y. So one thing we might have to do is adjust the height of everything because it affects the Y position of things too relative to the position of the character on the regular foreground. But anyway, so let's try... In fact, for now, let's just change the X so we can worry about that later. Like, we're just worried about getting the speed to feel right. So let's lower that down to 150. So it's 50% faster. And at the same time, I'm going to increase the speed. And let me see if there are actual events and gameplay events that change the playback speed. I don't think so. The spriter object. Okay, yeah, so if he's playing walk, why is this happening?
Well, that is humanoid enemies, though, right?
Oh,
like
wow, there you go. Wow.
Yeah,
See, this is the problem. Yeah, yep. Okay. So
you might want to change,
I'll
change
undo.
that variable back.
I remember it was 15 originally. Get rid of that extra 1 and...
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Good one. Yeah. So that explains it. So there is no thing that controls his playback speed ratio.
So that would just be his spriter animation. That would just
exactly. That would be one way to
but
fix
we can
that.
control that here, right?
I mean, I literally could copy that very event and replace the humanoid enemy thing with him. The question is it worth it?
Yeah, it might.
If he has a little inertia, it could be nice that the playback speed changes based on the speed while walking, but at the same time, it's a 3-frame walk cycle, so you're never going to really be able to notice that change in playback speed. All right, so here we are in the spriter object for the hero, for the player, and we just need to go to the walk, and oh yeah, well, I had made it really slow, so we could try... We'll try 900, and if that's too fast, then we will just do 1000, which is exactly 1 second for a complete cycle. So let's see, File, Save Project As, and remember you have to save it as both an SCML and a scan with the same exact name otherwise. Sorry about those. I'll turn that off now, actually. Mixer, there we go. System sounds. You couldn't hear it, but it was blasting those bling noises. Well, all right, so now that I have that in there, I can go to the spriter project, spriter layout, get that folder open, drag it in there. Yes. Spriter events. There we go. Delete the old hero thing, and we're all set. Okay, so now his actual animation playback speed should be different. Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Yeah,
much better synchronization.
That's much closer, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, good enough for now. Now we know how to do it, and we know it's not in a formula for humanoid enemies.
Right.
Way to pay attention, Mike. But anyway, so that looks much better. So now let's. You want to slow that back, the extreme foreground down a bit more?
Yeah, just a bit more.
Yeah. All right, so we just go to Layers, FFG, and so we'll do maybe 130. That should be a pretty substantial difference. Let's see how that looks. Let me know. Once you're happy with it, we'll consider this tweak to be finished, at least for this iteration.
That's not bad. It's a little slow, but at the same time, it feels right.
More in keeping with what looks like the actual depth.
Right.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we'll leave it at that at this time and stop playing for the sake of playing. We don't need to do that right now. We did that off screen. All right, save progress. And always important to have list going. And let's see. So the other thing that I was talking to Corey about before is one of the things we needed to tweak really badly in gameplay was right now you can spam moves that make you very powerful or just let you do sort of goofy things. And if you might recall, when you do the air bash attack in the air, right now it pauses the game and pauses gravity, which is fine for a cool effect. But the problem is you can keep doing that move over and over and over again as much as you want. So you could just stay floating in the air and pausing the game, going into like a slow-mo mode where you're doing this really powerful attack over and over again. And so I realized one thing that could sort of kill two birds with one stone in the case of this particular move that needs to be sort of nerfed to not be overly powerful is make it so that when you do not have any gauntlet magic power, then the game will not pause itself and you won't freeze gravity and hang in the air, because that'll make it all the more special when that does happen once you have the magical power. So that'll help a lot with the regular bash attack. And then the other thing we discussed in our previous video is we're going to add like a cooling down meter where we'll say, while the gauntlet has powerful magic, certain magical attacks, the gauntlet has to sort of rebuild its energy before you can do that attack again. So that'll help eliminate the spamming and the rest of the moves once we figure out how much magic energy does each move take. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. We can make it so, let's say the air bash takes half or the entire magic meter and then it has to replenish, but maybe another move only takes a quarter or something like that. And if we wanted to, I'm just thinking of this now, if we want to make it this complicated, we can even make it so that if you completely drain it until it gets past a certain point, like 10%, then the gauntlet disappears again, but once it grows back, you'll get it. I don't think I want to do that. Like, I don't think it's a good idea, like saying it out loud, but an idea passed my head. So even if you have bad ideas when you're collaborating with another creative person, it is almost always a good idea to spit that idea out, because even if it turns out that idea is bad, there's a good chance it'll inspire a really good idea. So
right.
Let's find the event for the standard air bash, which should be in gameplay events, and I think it is just called AIRBASH. One way to find out. Yep. Air_bash. Naming conventions matter a lot. So here it is, and you'll see set time scale to 0 and all that. And okay, yeah, so what we need to do is we're going to add a sub-event, and we're going to check, for now, this will be enough, check if power level is greater than 0. So now everything that happens here will only happen if the player actually has magic. So we're going to move the time scale and the disabling, and this is kind of unnecessary and redundant if it doesn't pause time, and then the order in which it happens is important. So if we did it this way, now like this part only triggers if they do have magic power for the gauntlet. We pause time, but we tried to unpause his time ahead of time, so that probably wouldn't work. His animations would get frozen in time as well. So we need to make sure that is like this. So now what should happen is, if he has magic power, he will freeze in the air to do the move. But if he does not have any magic power yet, he'll just keep flying through the air while doing the air bash, which is going to change the gameplay a lot. And you'll no longer be able to spam it in the air if you don't have magic power. Which attack is it? There we go. Boy, does that change it.
Yeah, wow.
Oops, hold on. Yeah, it makes it a totally different thing. It makes this regular animation too slow. So that's an unforeseen. Oh wow, that went right through. I wonder why that happened. Well, it didn't that time. That's another bug we'll have to fix later. But right now, the thing that annoys me is how slowly that animation plays. And there's an easy way to fix that, which would be to, let's see, gameplay events, air bash. So let's set his time scale after we set it to air bash to, actually it's not going to be as easy as I thought. We'll have to find those other time scale events, or playback speed, or whatever it was called. Yeah, playback speed ratio. But anyway, for now, what we need to do is say we'll make the animation play, like for now we'll try 3 times the speed. So it plays 3 times as fast if time is not being paused. And then, oops, no, that's correct. It'll fix it. If it is being paused, then it'll fix it and bring it back to the normal slow playback speed. But the issue is we have those other, what was it called again? Playback. Oh yeah, those are humanoid enemies actually. There's no, oh good, so yeah, there's no
Oh,
event.
no, and you'll also have to reset it after the animation's done playing,
That's
right?
a great point. That's a great point. Alright, so clear, and let's do air bash.
Otherwise, he'll be speedy. Super speed.
Right. So all we need to do is say, well, we'll create a new event that says hero. Actually, we can just steal this. No, we can't steal it. I want is playing instead of finished. So hero, and then compare current animation, air bash, and then we're going to negate that. So invert it. And then we're just going to set his playback speed, hero, and animation, playback speed ratio, set it back to 1. So it makes sense? So only if he's in air bash can he have potentially a special playback speed ratio.
Right.
All right. So let's go back and let's test this again. And the ×3 speed was arbitrary, just a very rough guess. Oh, interesting. There's also something that's limiting his horizontal movement. Like I'm holding. Yeah, we have to fix that too. It's because we put him in stuck in move mode, and when you're stuck in move, you it ignores the left or right input. All right, now I have the power. As you can see, once it goes back, it's slow again, and he freezes time and all that stuff. So that's all working. We just need to tweak the timing of everything and fix these loose ends we had not considered, like, well, we need to do something about the...
I definitely like the idea, and we wouldn't have to do it now, but... Based on his power level, it should freeze time a little longer, so that there's like some sort of gleaming effect on the gauntlet to make it look like he's about to do some damage. You know, that would be pretty cool to build up over time. You know. All
right. So animation airbash. That's when it's finished. So presumably, stuck in move to 1 is the issue.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm looking for is the thing that says simulate. So see here, stuck in move has to be 0.
Right.
But the issue is, what we're going to need to do is find the code that changes him to either jump or fall. So you could see here, set animation to jump. If stuck in move equals 0 and the guy is jumping. The problem is, what we need to do is add another condition that says hero, compare current animation, air bash, and negate that. Invert. So, and then put this down here. So if the player jumps, or actually that's is jumping. Yeah, we don't need that for here. Sorry. Move that. Maybe it's only falling, actually. Maybe he only goes back to the falling animation. So let me look for fall.
So it was a factor of you think it would feel better if you could keep having that horizontal movement while doing the
it felt really weird, like you were, because time isn't freezing, it feels really weird that you, even if you keep holding right, you completely lose your horizontal inertia. That felt really wrong. It felt like I was a magic pantomime hitting a glass wall for that moment that I initiate the move. It felt very wrong. Definitely something that's probably harder to tell just by watching someone play as opposed to playing it yourself.
So do you think maybe it's just a matter of... No, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, just giving it that condition, yeah.
Yeah, so now if he's in the middle of the air bash, even if he starts falling, he's not going to suddenly abort his air bash. And this way what we can do, the whole point of this, is that now we can get rid of that set stuck and move to 1, which, let's see, that would be, it's an air bash.
Would we still need it for the powered versions, though, that pause time? Because that was sort of the reason it was there, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to get rid of it completely. I'm going to move it down to that same sub event that we created.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is, air bash, power level is greater. This is when we should set stuck and move. All right,
Okay.
and now I should be
Makes
able to
sense.
maintain my horizontal movement without any issues. All right, hold on. Yep, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that feels much better. Feels much more natural. And I'm doing the super jump to make life easier on me. But yeah, that's feeling much, much better.
The one...
And now when I'll get the power up so we can see the difference when time pauses.
One thing that might take some tweaking too with this original air bash is the way he sort of is stuck in that second frame for so long when he's falling, which I guess we can fix that. But it seems like that attack box is going to be kind of just out there for a while. So it seems like you could actually just kind of ram into enemies in that frame, and it would, that would look wrong, obviously.
Yeah,
so
we can definitely fix that. The reason that is because if we go back to fall, you'll see that we only, I think anyway, and this was a common problem actually. Let's see. So here's the player, stuck in move equals 0, on fall. So that's only that one frame where the character switches from going upward to going downward, right? And then if air bash is not playing at that very moment, it'll change it back to fall. The problem is, a lot of the time, you will have already had been falling, and then you do air bash, and then when you're finished, you're going to get stuck on that last frame, because it's not the moment fall is happening. So we need a new event that instead of is on fall, is the character falling. It'll be as simple as doing this. I'll just start from scratch. So we're going to do add event, and it's player box, I think, PL, And then we're going to do is falling. So that's just a continuous, every loop, if it's falling, that is true. And then we're going to add is air bash not playing. And we're going to add stuck and move equals 0. So all of these things have to be true. Then we should switch his animation to fall. So now theoretically he will not stay stuck in that last frame.
Right.
And that was a problem I mentioned in the previous video. Like, it looked like it was still stuck. But yeah, now he's properly going to his normal fall animation after an attack. After you attacked, you would not go to your normal fall animation. So we've made an improvement. Maybe it's just the animation speed lingers him on that frame for a long time. But we did speed up the animation by 3 frames, so...
I guess maybe that animation is not set to loop, so it just keeps it on that last frame, I guess.
But now, because you're falling and you're not stuck in move 0, it should immediately... Oh, wait, no, not immediately. That's a good point. Yeah, it's got to be the actual duration of... Let's look at this animation. So it's air bash. Oh, yeah, look, there's a very long... Oh, I shouldn't say that. Hold on, I'm speaking too soon.
Well, but it's playing that first frame fast, so...
And the other one is equally as fast, and then it's supposed to be done with the animation. So it is not this playback speed in Spriter that is the issue.
So basically, when the animation is done playing, it's just not... It's just not switching back for some reason.
Okay. Yeah, here's why. Yeah, that was a brain fart. Okay. So this should be replaced with unfinished. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me check air bash. Is there an on animation air bash finished? Yeah, there is. It doesn't change the animation though. Right. Yeah. So let's just move that there.
I don't remember that happening before though. There was something different with the time. I guess it's because maybe with the time freeze we are setting it back as opposed to...
Like with the time freeze, you're guaranteed for that animation to finish, pretty much, so you never would have noticed it. Like before, something like that. We'll see. In any case, we're definitely fixing problems here. So stuck in move 0, current animation air bash. All right. This is still relevant because if you're up in the air and you're falling now and you had been playing a different animation like getting hit or something, but now you're falling or you attack. Like I said before, I definitely noticed, I mentioned it in a previous video. You jump in the air, you attack, and then you're stuck at the end frame of attack instead of going back to your normal fall. And that definitely fixed that. So we'll leave that intact and we'll just add that to this as well. And now all of the variations of this one kind of bug theme should be fixed.
All right.
Yeah, well, it's definitely working. It looked a little jarring that first time it happened for some reason. I wonder why that was. That's it. He's... Okay. His Y velocity is getting reset to 0 for some reason.
I think it's because the pausing makes it seem like he doesn't... Like, it makes it look more natural when he comes out of that freeze.
Yep.
To not be falling really fast or something.
This is the concern. So this was done because before we were always freezing time, and we wanted it so once you did the air bash, you would always start falling immediately.
Right.
But the problem is now your velocity might already be at like 100 or something like that, falling fast, and then suddenly you're going to be falling really slowly because of this. So once again, we need to do a sub-event, and we're going to compare variable. This will work for now. Power level. So this will mean you definitely, greater than 0 is what I want. Greater than 0. So right now, if your power level is greater than 0, then time definitely paused, and we want this effect to happen. Right? But otherwise, we don't want that effect to happen. So this separates that out so it doesn't happen when you don't want it to, when you want to keep your downward momentum at the full speed. So that should fix that too. It's amazing how many edge cases you don't even realize they're going to be when you change something like this.
Right.
It's really important to keep an eye open for all the things that... Yeah, there we go. Nice. That feels very natural. Regular... Yeah, that feels good. It works well now with a regular jump or with a... except right there, it looks a little weird when the... Basically, if you land... Maybe eventually I'll make a thing that gets rid of the motion blur immediately if you land and it cancels you out of the air bash.
Right,
because you hit the ground. But that's a more minor thing. I won't go into that level of... That's actually really fun without the time pause too. It's less, you know, kind of cool, cinematic, dramatic, like when you have the firepower. The time pause is cool there, especially because we could do a full screen palette change and make the screen kind of tint red, or do a kind of charge up effect like you said, or both.
You're right.
Once you have the firepower, and make it more, take longer and be more drastic, depending on how powerful you get, to create that anticipation. Like, this is going to hurt this eagle or falcon. But anyway, awesome. All right, that works. So we took a quick pause break, and we decided it would be smart to move on to level 2 to start looking for things specific to level 2 that should be tweaked or could be easily tweaked. And there's one thing that we should point out. You'll notice that while these icicles scroll at the same speed as the trees did in the first level that made it look fast, because they don't have that repeating pattern under them of ice like there are the bushes in the first level, it lets your eyes and brain go, okay, these icicles are way closer to me, to the viewer, than those trees were.
Right.
And because that scale works, the fact that they move fast doesn't cause a problem at all. In fact, it looks great, and it adds even more visual variety to the... Oh, look at this! We've found a new bug. That's awesome. So he got stuck in 3 times speed. That's so cute.
I know.
He's in frantic mode.
Unintentional.
Frantic mode. That's awesome. All right. So let's see why that happened. So I thought we had a thing that said in some gameplay events, playback.
Yeah, his speed wasn't getting reset properly after the bash, I guess, is what it was. Maybe.
Okay, so he's going... Oh no, that's punch tell. Okay. Hold on a second. Air bash, set playback speed. Where are we setting?
I think it's
these are
during,
enemies again, sorry.
yeah, I think it's the regular air bash where we're now setting it to 3 times speed. Somehow that wasn't getting set back and it was making his
Yeah, but
walk
that's the weird
play.
thing. It says right here, if his animation air bash is not playing, that's what that red X means.
Right, yeah.
Then it's supposed to set him back to 1. So why didn't he set back to 1? And that is interesting.
Can you reproduce that and do it again, you think?
I would love to. Let's see. 'Cause it's so
I mean, I don't know
funny.
exactly what triggered it, but I thought it was
assume
bad.
I like my guess was it's because he hit the ground while he was still doing the air bash. Yeah, there you go. So let me reset it again, but that doesn't make any sense to me because no matter what, he's definitely no longer playing the air bash. So
That could
let's
actually
try it way
be-
up here. Oh no,
that
it
could
looks
be
like
more
no
of a-
matter what.
Oh, yeah. But are his other animations playing faster, like the regular attacks and stuff? Or is it just the wall? Oh, yeah, they all are.
I think they all are. Yeah. Interesting. But why?
Is it? Do you think that's kind of a construct bug as opposed to a?
I certainly don't think so, and I've made plenty of goofy oversights due to my fatigue and level of distraction that I'm assuming this is a me problem. I'm just not seeing something obvious. But that's so straightforward. Hero is current animation air bash, and that's not misspelled. Is it not playing, which would be the case if it were playing walk or idle, then hero set playback speed ratio to 1.0.
Is there something in the full code that would prevent that from executing somehow, like based on him hitting the ground or something? It doesn't seem like it. It seems like
No.
like that should happen always.
I just
right?
did a search for playback, and it would have to be something that affects playback, and everything else is for the enemy, the humanoid enemy.
Right.
So the only other thing... Yeah, I mean, if there was anything else that affected playback speed ratio... But that's the interesting thing. So where is the one for the player doing the air bash in the first place? Am I not in gameplay events? No, I am. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, it should have shown up. Yeah, when you did that.
What was it?
search.
3.0, right? Search for 3.0. Air bash. How did that not show up?
I don't know.
That's really weird. Say animation to air bash. I'm sure it's just my fatigue, but something weird. Is it a sub event and we didn't realize it? Okay.
That's the only thing I can think of is.
Look at this. Okay, I'm an idiot. Okay, look at this. I did not. This is a sort of syntax thing or mistaken one feature for another. I set his time scale, not his playback speed ratio. What a dummy.
Okay. Right.
So in one case, I'm
Right,
affecting
right.
his playback speed ratio, and in the other thing, his time scale. They're two different things. All right, so set playback speed ratio to 3.0. So sometimes your logic is not wrong. It's you're making a foolish mistake, like misusing one feature, thinking it's another, or function, or whatever.
Right.
So let's try that again. It's almost sad to see that funny little high-speed shuffle go, but there we go. Now
Nice. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
All right, so before that bug happened, what were we talking about? Yes, the speed of the stalagmite is perfectly fine.
Yeah, there was something else.
Yeah, there's a specific
you
thing
had brought up.
Yeah. One thing that I want to do is I have to get the power first to talk about it, really.
Okay.
There we go. All right. So another thing that will help nerf this from being too powerful, and it's not a problem at first because it actually hinders you that it's a slow animation because you're a sitting duck for a long time, but once those things start coming out sideways, you're no longer a sitting duck, and the animation taking a long time protects you for a real long time. So one thing I do want to do is just speed up the how long that animation takes.
Right.
And again,
Well,
go ahead.
but the other thing I think we found here, wasn't it something about his, like, once you have the thunder power, somehow his regular attack is getting set back to the normal.
Yes. Yeah, that's
I
another
think that
bug.
was...
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah.
one. That's another bug that Corey had found that is specific to this level, and I'll explain why that's specific to this level. So as you might recall, we have these attack blur sprites, and it's broken into, or it's supposed to be broken into 3 power levels per power type.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it uses a formula to recreate the animation. So what was interesting is it was not switching to the thunder animation variant. So there must be a problem with the names here. And unfortunately, my eyes aren't what they used to be, and it's a pretty high-res monitor. So let me... 1 thunder default. That works. 2 thunder... There's an L there.
Nah.
You see that?
Yep.
All right, so rename... So the formula was failing, obviously, because the name was incorrect.
That is a hard L to see.
Yeah,
that is...
it's lined up with the edge of the
Yep.
D. So,
All right.
Like,
Nah,
the
that
only
should fix it,
reason
yeah.
I kept looking is I knew logically there had to be a typo, but my eyes could almost not detect it at all between my aging eyes and how thin that is, and it's just like one straight thin line, almost like 1 pixel away from another one. Enough talk about my vision.
Easy fix for that,
The
yeah.
perils of growing old. All right, so, but now that should fix it. So what was happening before is it would work fine when you got the first power level, and then as soon as you got the second power level, the electro ball would no longer appear, and the regular attack would appear instead, the regular attack blur. So now, the only downside is I'm going to have to play this level and survive long enough to get the second power level, which is still challenging for this level. But once you get power level 2, it's a cakewalk. It's a breeze. And we still have to tweak. This level definitely is going to require the most tweaking because you end up landing right on other stuff. All right, so there's the first power level, which does not need to be nerfed. There we go. Second power level. Okay, so you see how long that takes?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have to time it much more carefully if it comes out really fast and goes away fast.
Right.
So that'll help a lot. Well, that's cool. I forgot we did that move. So in order to do that, to make it happen faster, we have the actual spriter animation, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's the same speed for all of them, for all of the Thunderbolts or whatever.
There it is. Okay, so, and that's great, and it's based on power level, so we can literally just make it, like, I'm okay potentially with it taking a little longer when it's the more powerful one, but only a little, and right now it lingers way too long, so we're just going to literally, we'll cut this time in half, and then same thing here, we'll make it like 75%, so 750, and then keep this one as, well then again, it kind of defeats the purpose, so let's be even more aggressive. This might be too fast, but hey, let's see how it goes. 600 and 850. Alright, final. Save project as. And then re-import it to the spriter layout. $5 million clicks later, delete this, and back to level 2 for another quick test. I'm going to save the progress. And let's see if this feels any better. We're still going to have to do the cooldown thing, which I think is probably a good idea in general across the board anyway. But,
right.
But,
yeah. Yeah, that's one nice thing about developing your code so that it responds to actual animation times sometimes is it can put a little bit of that I guess you could say tweaking sort of ability back into the artist's hands sometimes,
absolutely.
where it's like, oh, the artist can set the animation differently, so now it'll fix the gameplay, and the programmer might not even have to change anything, you know. So
yeah, this feels way better. One thing though, I just realized.
Yeah, I like how it's quicker. It makes it less super invincibility, I guess.
Yeah. It's still quite long here, and I am wondering, I thought we had a thing that forces playback speed to 1.0, but I guess I'm wrong. Like in any case when Airbash is not playing, but maybe I'm misremembering. Again, out of fatigue, so let's see. Cancel.
Was it speeding up again in certain instances, or?
No, I mean, I think it's being consistent, but I'm wondering logically how that's possible. Playback. So right here, Airbash is not playing. Set playback speed ratio to 0. So that should make it so that it's impossible for the Lightning to have been any faster, but it sure as hell looked faster to me.
Well, you had sped all of them up, though.
Oh, that's why. Of course. Yes. I just forgot. Like it's fatigue. I thought I had tweaked the playback speeds in Construct and not in the. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Never mind. I'm just being dumb.
Right.
All right. So that does feel a lot better. We still need to further nerf, but we'll save that again for the next video. I think this is going to have to be enough pretty much for this video, but in the next video we'll finally get to adding that sort of idea that the gauntlet recharges itself after doing a strong attack, and you can't spam on a strong attack. It has to have time to recharge itself. And that should pretty much theoretically completely get rid of that overpowered sense with the higher power leveled thunder attack. And the other thing will just be a matter of making the game frantic enough. And this level, it seems like, with all the flying owls and bombs flying at you, that won't be a problem. In fact, we're probably going to have to carefully tweak the movements and gravity and stuff of those bombs so you don't end up landing on the explosion of the grenade of the owl that you just killed and stuff like that. Or at least that it's possible to avoid that, or much more possible.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That could even be something as simple as a quicker, smaller explosion from the bombs as opposed to the regular one. So it's like there's just less chance of hitting it so much. Yeah.
That's a really
but
good
anyways.
idea. Yeah. And again, that's that idea of giving the control back to the artist, and even when it's not the artist, like the sort of game designer, if they are not the artist, it's much easier for them in visual tools like an animation editor like Spriter to change those things, or even in Construct here to just change the animation speed of an animation. That's something anyone can do, and it gives the people that should be in control of the gameplay, if the gameplay designer is not the programmer, which certainly happens sometimes. But in general, in bigger projects where the artist and the game designer and the programmer are all different people, having these tools that affect gameplay through animation speed, collision boxes, all these things, it really allows the game to find a higher level of polish and fun factor, so to speak, much quicker. But anyway, I guess that is it for this video, unless you had any other final thoughts, Corey?
No, I think that's it for now.
All right. Now, I guess I'll just remind everyone, Friday, so not tomorrow, but the next day, I'm heading out to Germany for a classic Amiga computer show in, what are those things called? Not a show, a
convention.
Convention, there we go, convention,
Right.
That's good. In Germany, it's called Amiga 34. And I'll be showing our other game project you may have seen called Metro Siege, as well as quickly discussing our other projects there. And I'll be back on the 14th. So I probably won't be making or uploading any videos until after I get back from the trip. But anyway, I'm sure there'll be a video giving a sort of update on how that trip went and any interesting information that we can publicly share about the trip at that point. But anyway, that'll be it for this one. Thanks as always, Corey, and thanks everyone for watching. And that's it. Sign off awkwardly.